Okay, so I'm out here looking for a silver mine, and you could see I'm way up here, and you could see the LR3 way in the background. And I'm up here in the woods following a Lidar coordinate that I plotted, where I spotted what looks like a tailings pile on a Lidar map. So as the story goes, this silver mine provided some lead for the Revolutionary War on the American side. So it was mined for silver before the Revolutionary War, but when war broke out, it was mined mostly for lead because there was a major shortage of lead in the colonies, and that was a necessity to waging a war against England. So it was operated for lead, but we don't know how much lead it actually produced. There is a really interesting story that's associated with this area, and it has to do with another source of lead during the Revolutionary War, and that was the King George III statue in Bowling Green, New York City. And that statue was ripped down and it was shipped up to Connecticut. So it was put on a boat and shipped up to Norwalk. So from Norwalk, part of it went up possibly to this silver mine, because this is a big lead statue. How are you going to melt something like that down into bullets? But this mine, when the contract was drawn up in the 1760s to mine this mine for silver, permission was granted by the landowner to the investors to operate a furnace to smelt the lead, to melt down the lead ore, but at that time it was for silver. So this would have been a perfect spot. It was probably the closest silver mine to New York City. It would have had a furnace where the lead from the statue could have been melted down, but there's really no record to say if the statue was in fact melted down at this mine or not. But there's an interesting story where just a few years ago, maybe a decade ago, a piece of the King George III statue was actually found right in this town, buried in a swamp. So whatever didn't get melted down was buried, and it was found right here in town. Several pieces of it, and I believe that they're now in the Smithsonian Museum. And the rest of the statue went up to Litchfield, I believe, and was melted down by just a one or two man operation in a shed, I think in Litchfield. But who knows, maybe a piece of the King George III statue is still out there, just waiting to be found. And there's definitely something here. Look at the crystals here. Wow. Oh, here's the mine. Look at this. It's deep. I've never seen an old shaft with a cover over it before. They're using it as a well. Check out the tailings pile, see what's on that. Wow, look at this. Can't believe how useful Lidar is. That could go down pretty deep. Okay, so I'm back in the Land Rover now, and that was very successful. It was a mine. It was probably a silver mine, but it may not have been the silver mine mentioned in the records, because the silver mine that was mentioned had a shaft 120 feet deep. And there were just not enough tailings at this one, unless the tailings were taken away. I have a feeling it's not the actual colonial mine, but it was still an interesting find, and we'll still have to keep looking around. I'll have to do some more research. I know that the mine was mentioned as being on a steep cliff, which this one was. I don't know. I don't have a very good feeling about it, but it was certainly worth going out and looking for. The Lidar, once again, was indispensable. I would not have gone out here to look for this without the Lidar. There were no clues from my research to tell me to go out to look here. The only thing that brought me out here was seeing the mound on the Lidar maps. So once again, it just proves that Lidar is the best way to find these sites. I'm going to have to research the legend of the King George III statue more and find out where the pieces were found. Where is the swamp where the pieces were found? I wonder if it's nearby. And if it's not, I wonder if there was a mine nearby where the pieces were found. So stay tuned and I'll bring you more updates as the Mines and Mysteries Silver Mine episode comes together.